Anytime.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The January 7th, 2010 special meeting of the City Council is called to order. This meeting has been properly noticed and posted in compliance with the open meeting law. Would everyone please rise for the pledge? Thank you, everybody. This is a very important meeting that we're about to engage in, considering the priorities for the City of Las Vegas during these very trying economic times, and I appreciate the fact that everybody has taken the opportunity to join us here today. We look forward to the input, and hopefully at the end of the day we'll be able to express our mission and our vision as to our priorities with a great deal of clarity. It's been several years since we've gone through this process, and it's a new world, change time, and therefore our thinking has to be conformative to the responsibilities that we have under this very difficult economic situation. I want to assure everybody that we'll be out of here by no later than 4:30 because I have my priorities in order, and it's Texas +4 over Alabama. So if we're not through by that time, the Mayor Pro Tem will be handed the gavel, and he will conduct the proceedings.
Oh, no, we'll both be out here. I got Texas +4.5, too.
All right. 4.5? Where did you get the half?
I know who to bet with.
Okay. In all sincerity, this is going to be a very meaningful session, and I'd like to start off with introducing Betsy Fretwell, our City Manager, for opening remarks. Ms. Fretwell.
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of the City Council.
Before you start, I think this is probably the appropriate time, Ms. Fretwell, for me to read the item into the record.
Absolutely.
Item number 4 is report and possible action on community-focused panels, council priorities, and key performance indicators. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mayor. We've set up kind of a little unique environment for us to hold this planning session workshop today for you. One, we get to take advantage of this fabulous facility that I know you're all very proud of, and be able to open that up to a variety of citizens who are here to help participate and watch the deliberations that go on today. We've also set it up so that all the directors have a seat at the table, so that as you're working through these issues today, you can utilize them as resources, as your subject matter experts, to provide you feedback on what you hear today, as well as what you talk about in the way of priorities and key performance indicators as we go forward. I would like to mention that Fire Chief Greg Gammon's running a little bit late. As you know, we had a scheduling conflict today. We had a rookie school graduation at 1 today. He hopes to be joining us by about 2:30. And I'm sure any of the other directors who aren't here yet will trickle in momentarily. Chris Knight had a personal issue come up. He will probably not be here today. He may be here by the end of the meeting. So, with that being said, what I'd like to do is just quickly go to the overhead. Basically today, we're going to step through a process. The purpose is to update your priority statements and hopefully also create a comfort level with some key performance indicators related to those priority statements. So how we anticipate getting to that resolution today is by giving you a quick overview of our financial situation. I know you've heard that report several times. We've rolled it up to more of a situational analysis and levels of investment kind of report. We'll go over that very quickly with Mark Vincent. Then we'll cover the citizen survey results. We have Dr. Robert Futrell here to give us the focus panel results, which is the second piece of your city, your way citizen engagement results. Then we will revisit our vision statement at a very high level and then move directly into a discussion of priorities and the key performance indicators. Hopefully by the end of the day today, we will have refined the council priorities. These will be used to guide us in all of our activities, both strategically and operationally, and in ways that will help us define our upcoming budgets and our action plans going forward. The mayor mentioned that we have kind of a long history of strategic planning here in the city of Las Vegas, dating back about 10 years ago. We started in Mesquite and we identified 7 initial priorities. Those were amended in 2004. We have updated the strategic plan in 2005, and then we added key performance indicators in 2007. We launched the Performance Plus initiative, which is basically a management for results kind of program where we are performance managing. We're able to adjust and address shortfalls in performance and align budgets to outcomes that the community might expect from us for that level of investment. Mark, you want to come give your presentation on the financial situation?
Thank you, Betsy. For the record, Mark Vincent, Chief Financial Officer. Old news here. We've been looking at 3. This year will be the 4th year of declining revenues. Obviously, they're not sufficient to maintain our current service levels. And so part of what I'm trying to do here in a very short presentation is just sort of frame up how the strategic planning and the prioritization process has a role in how we're going to balance our budget for next year. You've seen this slide before. In your printed copies, it's goldenrod on the left, on the right, but here it looks a little yellow. You can see for 4 years in a row, including fiscal year 10, we were having negative growth rates. The dotted blue line is 0% growth rate, which is the scale on the right. While our current model says that we'll have flat consolidated tax revenue growth in fiscal year 11, I'm actually now thinking that that'll be closer to about 2.5%, 3% negative, and we'll be talking about that later as we go forward. Property tax is lagging in terms of it's seeing the effects of the economy popping up. We are having about a 4.5%, 5% negative growth in fiscal year 10, our current year. We're forecasting a 12.5% negative growth in 11. We'll be briefing you on Monday what we actually think that might be, and I suspect that will be even deeper. As we look forward to the general fund revenues, again, this will be 3 years in a row of negative growth rates in our general fund revenues, which is really part of the cause here. Our revenues are dropping, and our expenditures are still increasing. To kind of frame where your resources are going in the general fund, for 2009, the CAFRA report that we presented to you yesterday, our expenditures in the general fund are about $486 million. And this slide is really kind of interesting because a few years ago, the public safety component of that $500 million budget would be closer to 60%. Today it's 68%. Now that's not because the public safety expenditures are growing primarily as much as the cuts we've been taking so far have been primarily in the non-public safety areas. So that's what's driving that percentage. So public safety now is a bigger percentage of our budget, and that's what this slide's telling you. When you look at the public safety function itself, that 60% is about $320 million. You can see far and away Metro is the biggest chunk of that. Our own fire and rescue department is about a third of that. We have detention is a big chunk, traffic engineering, and of course neighborhood response, and city marshals is a little beige sliver. So that gives you an idea of what the composition of the public safety functions. General government was about $53 million. It has all sort of the administrative functions. The biggest chunks in there would be finance, planning and development, and IT. Also far behind them is the city attorney's civil division, the city manager's office as well. When we talk about culture and recreation, that was one of the other big components in the general fund, about $49 million. You can see the pieces of that. Parks and open spaces. Parks maintenance is about 43% of that. The recreation adaptive is about 31% or a third of that, so you see the components there. So that's all I was going to present to you today. Just sort of gives you a picture to think about as we talk through the strategic planning process.
Right, and the record should reflect that the council is basically briefed on a every 2-week basis at our council meetings as far as the finances are concerned. So I would hope that we're all intimately familiar with our position and our condition at this time based on those briefings. So thank you very much, Mr. Vincent. Ms. Fretwell, you'll talk about the citizen survey.
Absolutely. This is pretty much a recap of what Pam Gallion gave to you a couple of months ago. But basically, here were the services that the citizens seem to not want to see reductions in. Obviously, general safety services, where we're spending 68% of our current resources. We're high on that list. Examples of those kinds of services are things like Metro's response time to traffic occurrences, programs for youth, response time to medical emergencies, rates of violent crimes, the response rate to the violent crimes, fire prevention, programs for seniors, traffic enforcement, and response time to nonviolent crimes. So you can see very highly rated areas were medical emergencies, crime and traffic occurrences, as well as programs for youth, seniors, and fire prevention. We also were asking a specific question about what should we be considering during the economic downturn. And so here's what the citizens said they felt they wanted funds moved to. Programs for seniors, after-school programming, and services for low-income families, ranked way up there. The program's respondents least wanted funds moved to were cultural opportunities and parks and recreation. Where should we place greater emphasis? There were 5 key categories here, and you'll see a little bit of overlap with the prior slide. Economic development to create more jobs, a whopping 72%. Foreclosure prevention, services for seniors, services for low-income families, and after-school programming. Some of the areas that the citizens felt we should place less emphasis on during the economic downturn were cultural opportunities and government access television. The areas where they said we should maintain the same level of emphasis were fire response services, street light maintenance, and emergency medical services. What I'd like to do is ask Dr. Futrell to come up and give his presentation regarding the focus panels.
All right. Some of the council members, Ms. Fretwell, asked whether or not they could ask questions while you were making your presentation, and I suggested that perhaps they wait until the end of the presentation, but perhaps with Dr. Futrell, because there's so much he's covering, if there are questions and it doesn't impede the presentation, we'll take questions as the presentation's being made, if that's okay with you, Doctor. Is that all right? Very good.
Did you have questions for me before we move on to that section?
Are there any questions of Ms. Fretwell? No,
Mayor?
thank you.
Mayor,
Yes, Councilman.
will Dr. Futrell cover the slides that you just completed? Is that a part of the
No.
research?
Those results were from the community survey, the one that UNLV conducted for us. Dr. Futrell and his team worked primarily on the focus panel results, which also speak to the survey results, but speak to a few other issues. He's going to go over that in greater detail, but primarily the focus panel results.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Well, I just had a question for you then, Betsy.
Okay.
Councilwoman, if you just give me 1 second. There was some overlap as far as the community during the survey wanting more senior services and less cultural services. And I know that in our community, a lot of the cultural cross over into various areas, whether it be recreational, senior, or parks and rec. So just a clarification in regards to the cultural, being that less of the cultural would also mean less of the cultural programming going into the senior centers?
Councilman, there's a good bit of overlap, and obviously we try to make sense of some information that we're getting back from the citizens that may seem sort of contradictory. If you do one, then it may diminish something else
Right.
that they say is important. I think Dr. Futrell's presentation may help highlight what parts of cultural services the constituents felt were important, and then that may help you define what areas we should continue to place emphasis on going forward, and which areas didn't hit the radar, if you will, with those citizens. It may give greater definition to the area of cultural programming. There's obvious conflicts, too, and I don't want to cover his material, but there are some areas in the survey that the citizens said, we think that this is very important, and then in the focus panels, it wasn't important, nearly as important as was represented in the citizen survey. So there's some flat-out conflicting information between the two instruments. But the focus groups actually give you an opportunity to ask people why, and that's why having these focus panels was such a critical piece of the puzzle in a follow-up to the survey results.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilwoman.
and I hope you will cover why, just as you mentioned here, why there is such a discrepancy and a dichotomy between the focus groups and the survey. And also, if he could let us know something about the makeup of the groups as far as the information you gave us. You know, there's a page that was given to us, and we had some questions on some of that.
Sure, I'm sure he's planning on covering his methodology.
Because when you have such a strong feeling for citizens in one, and then you have such a strong feeling, no, the one we don't need at all practically is seniors on another, there's got to be some reason why.
And it may require us to really look at that particular issue subsequent to your meeting today to try and figure out why that is. The data we have right now may not tell us the answer to that question, but maybe we need to get to the bottom of it. That may be an outcome of our meeting today, for instance.
Thank you. Professor?
Well, thank you very much for the invitation to speak about the focus groups we've conducted for the Your City, Your Way initiative. My name is Robert Futrell. I'm an associate professor in the UNLV Sociology Department. I had a research team with my colleagues, Dr. Barb Brentz, who is here today, and Dr. Christy Batson, who could not be here, along with 4 UNLV sociology graduate students. I've been asked to spend about 20 minutes reviewing our research findings. I'll start with the rationale for the project, explain the methodology, review our main findings, and then finish with some consideration for council members that we've drawn from the focus group data. This focus group research process is part of a multi-pronged approach, as you know, to understand City of Las Vegas residents' attitudes and opinions about the city, about its programs and its services amid these difficult financial challenges. The focus group data is to supplement the data from the community assessment survey, which Ms. Fretwell was just talking about, that was administered by the UNLV Cannon Research Center, and to supplement the upcoming town hall meetings that start on Monday. Focus groups give participants opportunities to discuss in some depth and elaborate their thoughts and opinions in ways that large telephone surveys or town hall settings don't often allow. The open, flexible nature of our focus groups and the small group setting sort of encourage participants to talk freely about the subjects that really interested them and get some depth to the meanings that they have for the city and for service provision. It also allowed me as the focus group moderator to sort of probe and clarify issues and draw out the full meaning behind all the participants' comments. Planning for the focus groups began in late spring of 2009 in consultation with the city manager's office. A contract was initiated in September, and we immediately began recruiting participants. Between October 7th and November 3rd, we held 5 focus groups with 31 total participants. 4 of those focus groups were conducted in English and 1 in Spanish. All focus groups were held at City of Las Vegas community centers, and each focus group lasted for about 90 minutes. The focus
Professor,
group,
excuse me 1 second. We have a question. Councilman Ross.
Thanks, sir. Through the mayor, how did you get the panelists for the focus groups? Can you go through that, please? Let us know how you did that.
yeah. We recruited the focus groups from 7 randomly selected neighborhoods across all 6 city wards. These 7 neighborhoods were part of a larger random sample that we have done of 22 neighborhoods that were originally selected for participation in the Las Vegas Metropolitan Area Social Survey, which is a larger sustainability survey that we're doing with the SNRPC.
And Your Honor, I knew that, but I wanted the public to hear that and how they went about doing this in regards to creating those panels. Thank you.
Very good.
The neighborhoods that we selected included single and multifamily housing units. We canvassed each neighborhood, distributing flyers door to door to announce the focus groups and request participants. And each participant was offered a $30 cash incentive for their involvement. And Table 1 in the report that we have describes their demographic characteristics. In the first half of each focus group, we held a semi-structured discussion in which we posed a series of questions intended to draw out participants' thoughts about their sense of pride, their sense of belonging, their sense of attachment to the city of Las Vegas and their neighborhood, a sense of what their neighborhood experiences are like, their thoughts about sustainability, and how they understand the city of Las Vegas government's roles and responsibilities. In the second half of each focus group, it was designed to directly supplement the community assessment survey administered by the Cannon Center at UNLV. Participants completed a short paper survey, which is in Appendix 4 of the report. And on that survey, we listed city services and asked them to respond to 2 questions. The first question was, for each of the following city services, please indicate if you are not satisfied, somewhat unsatisfied, somewhat satisfied, or very satisfied with the service. And the second question was, due to cuts in the budget, some services may have to be reduced. For each of the following services, please indicate whether this would be a very good, good, bad, or very bad service to reduce. The services that we had listed for them were drawn from the 14 most positive and most negative responses indicated in preliminary data that we received from the Cannon survey. So that was before the final data that Ms. Ritwell just reviewed. We collected completed surveys, then we tallied the rankings during the focus group, and then we used the results of those rankings to elicit their verbal comments about how they understood the role of city services in their lives and why they prioritized some services over others. The short survey and discussion gives us some insight into how citizens may have interpreted some questions from the telephone survey done by the Cannon Center. Our main goal was to identify citizens' expectations for specific city services, but participants spent a lot of time also talking about just what constitutes a livable city. And the themes they raised in these discussions give us some important context for interpreting their thoughts about specific services. And we organized these into 5 themes: sustainable, livable, sustainable neighborhoods, safe city, fiscally sound government, pro-business environment, and vibrant urban fabric. In terms of livable, sustainable neighborhoods, focus group participants saw the creation of and support for strong neighborhoods as one of the most important issues for Las Vegas. Participants, especially long-term residents, had a strong sense of pride about Las Vegas as a growing, dynamic, and vibrant city, but they also perceived that the city's rapid physical and economic growth had come at a cost to their sense of community and connection with other residents. First and foremost, focus group participants expressed a desire for connectedness to others at the neighborhood level. We asked them to elaborate. Participants talked positively about their neighborhood in ways such as describing block parties they attend, or sidewalk conversation with neighbors, or brief periods when a few neighbors might have started a neighborhood watch. But they mostly talked about a scarcity of close bonds with other neighbors. As participants said, everybody is busy and has their own agenda. Another said, I'm friendly with my neighbors, and we look out for each other, but it's like nobody really gets too close because people move a lot. The ground just moves a lot here. Yet, participants also said there are key ways to connect with their neighbors. They repeatedly discussed how children are a key component of a vibrant neighborhood life, and of social lubricant for neighborliness. They also name parks and community centers as sources of pride and focal public spaces for attachment to neighborhoods. Our focus group participants desire a strong sense of community, and they're anxious for themselves to do what's needed to make that happen. And they also see a role for the city in services supporting neighborhood development, especially through youth programs and parks. And one person said, quote, "I think those type of services, parks and community centers, are really important, and that the city continues to provide those things so that the people in those neighborhoods who are trying to bring their neighborhood up to a better level can continue to feel pride in their neighborhood." On the paper survey, this emphasis on youth programs, community centers, and parks also emerged in our discussions. Youth programs were supported by, in all of the focus groups, and discussions centered on the need for constructive outlets for kids in the form of educational, sports, health programs, along with civic leadership opportunities. Participants initially ranked park maintenance on the paper survey relatively high in the good to reduce service category. Yet during the focus group discussions, when we asked about that ranking, they typically pulled back on their support for reducing park maintenance, citing the importance of clean and safe city parks for youth and community spirit. In terms of safe city, city residents in our focus groups define a safe city first and foremost as one that does not compromise basic health and human safety. This means that strong and effective fire services, emergency medical services, and response to violent crimes are basic requirements. On both our survey and in our discussions, participants ranked fire and emergency medical services very high as both bad to reduce and in terms of their satisfaction with them. One participant captured a common sentiment across all focus groups when she said that the fire and emergency medical services are the basic services we can't live without in the city. Residents across all focus groups are also satisfied.
Mayor Pro Tem, excuse me.
Please.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, Professor. Thank you. Yes, Professor. Just one stupid question, I guess. When you have your surveys, okay, I've been asked a couple of times to take a survey over the phone. And I've always wondered, how do you prepare your list? Is there any certain way that you ask the questions on your survey? Because to me, by the time you get through with answering these questions and stuff, when you get down to the bottom, you're just wanting to get off the phone and you want to quit talking about it. So is there any way why you put certain questions first, second, third, or fourth?
Those are taken from a list from the Cannon Center survey, from the community assessment survey. One of many of the questions that they had, sets of questions that they had asked in the telephone survey. And I think we've listed them in the order that they came from that survey. So that's not our choice of where the items are placed. We could have moved them around. But we intentionally limited the number of items to the 7 most and least supported items from that Cannon survey in order to be able to limit the time and to have discussion during the focus groups on those items.
Well, I guess, like on this survey back here, okay, it says availability of services and programs offered for children and youth. That's the first question. And then it goes down, law enforcement services in city parks and facilities. And then down here is communication received from the city of Las Vegas, response time from traffic ordinances and occurrences. It just goes down that way. My question is, how do they set up what questions are asked first, second, third, and fourth? On any survey.
On any survey, sometimes it's randomized, sometimes it's intentionally placed in a particular way. And on the Cannon survey, I believe, and I'm not an expert on what they have done, but I believe on a survey like that they have done, they likely asked similar questions at different times with different rank listings of those types of services. So they get at responses that in ways that don't reflect simply how they're ranked in the list that they're being provided.
Well, to me, if you're having a survey and it's, I know you try to make it as short as you can, but you're going to get stronger responses to your first page of questions rather than the second page of questions.
That could happen. That's part of the issue of any kind of survey research, I suppose. But them filling out the survey took a total of maybe 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes. It was pretty short, and we intentionally made it short so there wouldn't be a...
Thank you very much.
Sure. So again, in terms of safe city, city residents in our focus groups define a safe city first and foremost as one that doesn't compromise basic human health and safety. Again, what this means is that they desire strong, effective fire services, emergency medical services, and response to violent crimes as basic requirements. So both on our survey and in the discussions with participants, they ranked fire and emergency medical services very high as both bad to reduce and in terms of their satisfaction with them. And again, as I said, the one participant said, these are basic services that a city can't live without. And all the residents across the focus groups called the fire and medical services effective and efficient.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilman.
You mentioned that as far as a safe city, the emphasis on emergency medical and fire it was at the top in both the surveys and the discussions. Was that true with the first item you covered, livable, sustainable neighborhoods? Was that also true in both surveys and discussions?
In terms of the themes, we extracted those themes from all of the discussions. So
right.
we did not provide them to the focus group participants to say, let's talk about specifically livable, sustainable neighborhoods.
I know, but if you're saying that they talked about a safe city, and that was a strong positive response for that in the surveys and the discussions. I don't mean you brought it up to them or anything, and I know that the way a livable, sustainable neighborhood, it might be a little here and a little there, but did you find that balance there as well as with the safe city?
Yes.
Okay. I just wondered because we're supposed to be eventually setting our priorities again, and I was just wanting to know. Thank you.
Mayor Goodman, may I please, just as a quick follow-up?
Yes, Councilman.
I don't know if this is on or not. I think you stated, is it professor or doctor?
Either one.
What would you prefer?
Doctor's one.
Doctor, thank you. You stated that you got the most information during the focus group session because you had the informal interaction and you could do a little probing and discussing rather than just take direct answers off a form. Isn't that what you said, basically?
Yes, we get a different kind of information.
Okay, here's my question. And I think there were 31 participants in the focus group. So you're talking about sitting down with 31 people and discussing these various issues. And you did this last fall, 2-3 months ago. Here's my question. Were any of these 31 people that you sat down with, that you drew information from, that you are now providing us with your feedback and your responses, told about the city's financial condition? Specifically, that we have about a $400 million shortfall over the next 5 years. Just in fiscal year 11, we have about a $69 million shortfall. Did I state that pretty accurately, Ms. Fretwell?
Yes, sir.
So I'm wondering if they had the knowledge of the condition of the city's financial situation during your discussions, because it's one thing to say what you'd like and what you want and what you really desire back in 2004 when we didn't have this kind of economic situation versus today. Because I think, I don't know if these people read the newspapers. I noticed that 1 out of every 3 of these people were unemployed. I'm not sure what that means, but in your statistics, 1 out of every 3 people that were part of this focus group was unemployed. So there's certain biases that come to a table, no matter who you are. So were these people informed and made aware of our financial situation?
We did not inform them directly of any specific numbers.
Do you think that that would have an effect on their answers? And I'm not passing blame, I'm not pointing fingers, if they would have been made aware of in about a 30-minute presentation of our financial situation, do you think that would have affected their answers?
I think it definitely would have affected in some way any extra information that you provide, especially prior to the discussion, would have affected. And although we didn't provide specific information, we did tell them that the focus group was a city-sponsored project, and it was about trying to understand the budget crisis in that context. Nothing specific. And my sense is that most all the focus group participants knew something about it. Okay. Some general sense that there were cuts to be made, and I'll actually mention this.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor,
Yes, Ms. Fretwell.
if I could just maybe answer that a little bit further. We, in the design of this Your City, Your Way effort, talked specifically about whether or not we should get feedback from these focus groups regarding specific instances, specific data regarding the city's current financial situation. And Dr. Futrell, correct me if I'm wrong, the feedback that we got from our researchers, the people that we pay as experts, was if you do that, you are likely to bias the outcome of these results. And what we wanted to do was not compromise the integrity of the results. As you remember, we've set up a 3-step process. We wanted to have reliable and objective data that you could make firm decisions based upon having representation of the general views of your constituents throughout the city. Both the survey and the focus group can give you that comfort level. The town halls, those won't be randomly selected individuals. Those will be people who are interested in participating for whatever reason. Those aren't as reliable. You'll get a lot of qualitative data, but they won't be as reliable as far as the kind of data that you get. So I think it's important to know that we kind of made a conscious decision not to tee those issues up as to not bias the process.
And I certainly appreciate that, and I don't want to belabor the point too much. And I recognize that next week we start our town halls, and this is a process, and this is just one piece of that process. And that's all.
Very good.
Mayor Goodman?
Councilman.
Betsy brings up a very good point, and I want to speak to the focus groups. What was the makeup, the ethnic and male-female makeup of the focus groups?
I don't have it in front of me, but if you have the report, if you want to look at the first appendix, I think the demographics are there. I think it was about 60% Caucasian, 36%, approximately 36% Hispanic, some American Indian, and Asian.
How many African Americans were there?
There were none.
Why was that? If in fact we're looking at, as far as the cultural diversity of the city,
Yeah.
and these are focus groups looking at how in fact the city looks upon its municipal government, and that appears to be skewed data, in my opinion, being that there is I believe statewide, close to 13-14% African American population. You went into 7 different communities, 2 of which were in my ward, in which I have the most diverse ward in the city. However, there was not one African American within your data. So I'm just trying to understand.
We went door to door, and we spoke to lots of African American households. We didn't have, I think we had a few folks who called in, and some who may have committed to attend the focus group, but did not make it in the end. And we had a lot of that. We usually filled a focus group to 10 or 12 people, and then the actual folks who showed up would be around 6 or 7. So in the short time we had to recruit and complete the focus groups, in terms of who responded, we weren't able to recruit any African Americans into the actual focus groups, although we did, as you said, we were in your ward, and neighborhoods in your ward, and others, and we spoke to lots of African American families, handed them the recruitment material and so forth.
So my question is, you're a doctor in sociology? would you consider this to be an accurate form of data for such a survey in your professional
Right.
opinion?
Ideally, we would have more time. We could do these in phase process over time and do the kinds of recruiting that you're talking about. I think what this data provides is some grounding for citizen perceptions that you can use in conjunction with the wider sample telephone survey. In that sample, I think we had more than 900 people and a wider demographic. So there are always limitations, and one of the limitations for focus group surveys is, one, the small size of focus group research is one of the small size of the actual sample. And in this sample, one of the limitations is in terms of the time we had to recruit and the recruits that came to participate, we do not have representation for African Americans in this sample. So in that sense, that is a limitation.
Right. But my question is, with this, in your professional opinion and background, would this be, in your view, accurate?
I don't think it completely
Information.
skews all of the data. It just provides one set of insights to use with the other insights that you might develop from the community survey and the town hall meetings. Is it totally perfect? No. Is it useful? I think it is useful.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
To continue with the Safe City theme, when talking about their experiences, focus group participants also reported feeling relatively safe in their day-to-day activities, although some feared walking in their neighborhoods at night, feel anxious about seeing people on the streets they did not recognize. A prominent theme among participants in the downtown core, wards 3 and 5, I believe, is that they also see their neighborhoods on the cusp of two futures. Either redevelopment efforts will continue and take hold, or redevelopment will stagnate and the area will decline. These participants were especially sensitive to a rise in vacant properties and the risk of squatters, vandalism, and other crime that vacant properties may draw. Participants also identified a safe city as one that values education and cultural opportunities that bring people together in ways that enhance community spirit among Las Vegas. Finally, according to participants, a safe city prioritizes long-term energy and water security. In terms of fiscally sound government, there's a general understanding among focus group participants that there are shortfalls in the City of Las Vegas budget and that reduction in services are pending. There is also a lot of empathy expressed about the difficult decisions that officials will have to make since there's only so much to go around. But beyond these general feelings, focus group participants did not discuss specific fiscal strategies in any detail, and I should say that there was also no discussion of any perceived government waste or overspending. In terms of the business environment, focus group participants see business and job growth as a city priority. They also said the planning and direction for this is crucial. Participants did not simply want job growth of any type, however, but growth that fits a long-range development plan of what we want the city to be 10, 20, 50 years down the road. The residents we spoke with say that the city must look to smart growth that emphasized economic diversification to expand the tax base beyond the boom-bust casino cycle. As participants said, quote, "We cannot have an economy or a city built on one particular industry. I think they need to diversify and get something else into this area to support people get the right jobs and the right tax base." During discussions about economic development, residents commented positively on activities in Union Park as a start toward diversification. Participants felt that the city should capitalize on the arrival of the Cleveland Clinic and the Lou Rubo Center for Brain Health to promote medical and technology sectors and specialty trades such as the furniture exposition business at the World Market Center. And while participants also expressed concern that a lack of comprehensive long-term planning is at the heart of most city problems, several also thought that the city was in a position to steer growth in constructive ways that meet economic and quality of life needs for its residents. In terms of vibrant urban fabric, throughout our conversations, residents expressed pride and admiration at how far the city of Las Vegas has come and expressed support for downtown development efforts as part of this. They describe a livable, vibrant urban environment as one that sustains a wide range of businesses that offers diverse educational and cultural opportunities and is home to generations of families. Focus group participants again cite Union Park Development, 18B Arts District, and the Springs Preserve as prime examples of business and cultural activities that reflect their vision of a livable city. Participants also emphasize educational and cultural opportunities for youth, especially teens, along with park and other public spaces as components of a vibrant urban community. They also suggested that the city take advantage of the beautiful natural surroundings adjacent to us to enhance perceptions of what urban living in Las Vegas has to offer. And at the same time, some participants perceived inequities about where investment in urban development has so far been concentrated. Specifically, they perceive that downtown development has mainly been concentrated west of Las Vegas Boulevard, while areas east of Las Vegas Boulevard struggle unnoticed and underserved. So I'll now conclude with some points for consideration that we draw from the focus group data. And as I describe these, please keep in mind that across all focus groups, participants really offered more consensus on what programs to maintain than what to reduce. They were aware that they are not especially well versed in the details of how city services are funded or how modifications might affect service levels, nor are they especially inclined to know the specific details. The general sentiment seems to be that they want services to remain intact, and if reductions are made, they want to know what the direct impacts would be on that. So consideration one, focus group participants expect city government to sustain existing service levels, especially for essential health and safety services such as emergency medical and fire services. So we suggest that the city implements budget reductions, officials should communicate very clearly and specifically what budget reductions will mean to existing service levels and how reductions will or will not directly affect city residents. This is especially important regarding response times and effectiveness for emergency fire and medical services. Consideration two, youth support services are important to focus group participants. When considering their future, they placed a great deal of emphasis on investing in children to grow and develop into tomorrow's city leaders, residents. And participants think it's especially important to provide teenagers with safe, challenging educational and cultural programs and activities. So we suggest as officials make budget decisions, they should consider the importance participants place on youth services and try to mitigate reductions that compromise city-sponsored education and cultural activities for youth. Consideration three, participants desire strong neighborhoods, and they take responsibility for creating them, but need the city to support their efforts by providing leadership, direction, and resources. So officials might consider the effects of reducing services that influence residents' feelings of pride and investment in their community. Officials may consider ways to create partnerships with residents to supplement any reduction in services that protect neighborhood aesthetics, support community gatherings, and sustain public spaces, such as parks and community centers. Perhaps this includes organizing volunteer cleanup groups for parks and vacant lots. Consideration four, many participants frankly are confused about City of Las Vegas' specific roles and obligations to the community. This confusion was especially prominent in discussions of youth services and neighborhood support resources. Confusion was also apparent regarding city responsibilities in comparison to county, regional, and state entities. Respondents were also uncertain about the city's role in public transportation, in policing, and in youth education. So, as the city proceeds with budget reductions, there should be clear communication to residents about the scope of city obligations, what different city services specifically provide for residents, and the relationship of city services to services provided by other municipal, regional, and state agencies. Consideration five, focus group participants identify economic diversity as a high priority for the city, and so city officials might continue to take very serious steps to spur economic diversification that will expand the tax base and build a more economically stable and livable city. There should be clear and constant communication about all economic diversification efforts. And finally, all focus group participants were frankly very appreciative of the city for reaching out for their ideas, thoughts, and opinions. This is especially the case with the Spanish-speaking focus group participants. Participants were pleasantly surprised, they were enthusiastic, and they were proud to serve their city and community needs and through their involvement in focus groups, and they would like more of these neighborhood-based opportunities to participate in city problem-solving efforts. So city officials might consider innovative ways to better communicate and reach out to city residents to create opportunities for civic involvement. That's the end of my formal presentation. answer any more questions.
All right, thank you, Dr. Futrell. Are there any additional questions of Dr. Futrell at this point?
Just quick.
Yes, Councilman.
Thank you. Very good presentation. And this was a lot of material to read all week, and we were sitting here just talking about how efficient it was. The only two things that sticks out in the presentation comes down to an area that I thought I was the only one that was confused as far as the community in one portion of the survey states that reduce the culture of programs that the city offers, and then in consideration number 3, it basically says don't take away those cultural experiences. So that kind of confused me in regards to the data that was conducted versus the end result of the consideration in point number 3 that you just brought forward. And secondly was the first item I brought up in regards to just the ethnic makeup of those conducting the survey.
Right.
But other than that, it was a great presentation and great job to you and your entire staff.
Thank you.
All right, Councilman Anthony.
Thank you, Doctor. Good presentation. My PhD is from sociology department at UNLV, and I know you guys do great jobs on research projects. The one thing that I just want to point out that really sticks out in my mind is, if you look at the focus group results on Table 2, there are 10 categories that fall into the 80% of do not cut.
What page are you on?
Of those 10, 2, maybe 3 are non-public safety. So it's pretty evident that the public doesn't want us to cut public safety. And if you look at the slide that Betsy did on the survey results, there's 9 categories there in the 80%, and 2 are non-public safety. The dilemma is 68% of our budget is public safety. So that's a pretty stark reality. And I agree public safety is number one, and we're probably going to get that out of the town hall meetings. I mean, if we don't have a safe city, the rest of it doesn't matter. So that's just something that we're facing right now, and I don't know how we're going to get there, but that's just something that really sticks out in my mind.
Yeah, I think I could speak to that briefly. I think that at least the citizens in our focus group, they define essential services as those public safety services, and they define a lot of other services as non-essential, but that shouldn't be interpreted as unimportant. Right? They want to keep service levels up, at least the folks in our focus group, but certainly they rank public safety as very, very high.
Well, in light of that question, I get a sense from reading the data that perhaps there would be a willingness for the constituents to want to pay additional monies for these services that they deem so important. Do you have that same sense?
That statement was made several times throughout the focus group, not by all participants. I can't say that no participants said that they would be unwilling to pay, but there were some comments made that if service levels had to be reduced, that I would be willing to pay for that.
Okay, well, that's one of the areas I'm going to be interested when we go to our town halls to find out how far folks are willing to go, if they know where the monies that they would be paying actually are attributed to the services that they're receiving. I sometimes feel as the mayor that people don't mind paying as long as they know what they're getting for it.
I think that's a message, at least from our focus group sample.
And Mayor Goodman, if you don't mind, I'd just like to follow up. That's something we talked about at our briefing the other day, about giving us some examples about there is a typical City of Las Vegas homeowner, and how much does that median priced homeowner pay in the various taxes that the city receives revenue from, because perhaps if somebody found out that it might be another $50 a year to ensure that response times aren't decreased, they'd be willing to pay that $50 a year, whether it be a property tax or some other tax. And it might be useful to have this information just in general so that if we're asked about it, Mayor, at these town halls, we can inform the typical City of Las Vegas homeowner that for $50 a year, spread out proportionally to every homeowner, that we'd be able to ensure that response times by Metro or fire and rescue aren't interrupted. So if we could have that before Monday, Betsy, because our town halls start Monday. I mean, just some examples. If a constituent in my ward asks me, I'm willing to pay Councilman Wolfson X number of dollars more a year if it ensures that you don't cut fire and safety budget or Metro budget, I'd be willing to pay it. But I need to know how much we're talking about. I think it would be useful to know.
Thank you. Ms.
I think
Treadwell.
there are two components to that. If you look in the report, there's one reference in the report under Safe City on page 13 that indicates that a discussion of costs and then that willingness to pay. There's two references to that. Just like we talked with Councilman Tarkanian earlier about this kind of disparate response on senior services. In the survey, there was a strong response for senior services, but in the focus groups, it was the exact opposite for whatever reason. There may be a couple of areas that we want to explore further with the constituency to see what they mean, and maybe this is one of those areas. I would suggest that we go into that very deliberately and know what we're asking for before we just put examples out there, because one, we're working to identify ways to resolve that funding gap that we've been talking about for quite some time through, whether it be reductions in services, the expense side of our budget. If we're going to talk some more about the revenue side of it, we probably want to spend a little more time in the community asking specific questions to help you as you deliberate on that matter.
Well, I agree, and not to belabor the point again, but we start those discussions Monday, and the subject could come up, so I just want to be prepared to be able to respond to them about how much things might cost. Not that we're considering doing them, we're considering all of our options.
We could certainly put together, I think, some kernels, if you will, of data that you could use, the unit cost of certain kinds of things that we provide. That would be relatively easy for us to have available.
Well, none of this is in a vacuum, and after the study was released by the Chamber of Commerce concerning our salary levels for various city employees and state employees, and the fact that we are sixth in the nation as far as those salaries, for whatever that statistic means, I have heard from folks since that time that they feel that our salary structure is too high, and I think that we have to look at what we're doing as a city as far as these budget reductions, and then after we get that situation taken care of, if the services are vital and we have to look at revenue-raising devices, that's when that should be considered, because right now, as we all recognize, every discussion we've had thus far is based on the expenses, and we haven't considered the revenue aspect, and that's an important consideration. But right now, we're drowning, and we have to throw out the safety net in order to keep us afloat, and then once we figure out how to stay afloat, then we can make an adjustment. That's the way I see it. Okay? Anybody
Mr.
else?
Mayor, I think
Yes,
there's-
Councilman.
I just needed to ask a couple more questions on the focus group, the characteristics of that group. You have Hispanic listed separately, and then you have a high number of others. So I was wondering, what does yes mean Hispanic? Yes, 36.7% were Hispanic in the survey?
That they responded as Hispanic.
That they responded as Hispanic. Now, you don't have Hispanic under race or ethnic group or anything else, right?
Right, we had that as a separate category, so they may have responded other, and then also responded as Hispanic.
See, that's what's a little confusing.
And they may not have checked other at all.
They might not have, we don't know. The reason why I'm asking this is because I'm trying to rate this. No, I know.
You can't talk this way. We're on the
Yes.
record.
I just the validity of this is important, and I know that we're going to put this with the other, and then we're going to have the town hall meetings. And I think when we get down to the gut level of people coming up to us in the town hall meeting, it's going to fuse this together a lot better as far as how the public feels. Because it's very difficult to set this up with the characteristics and all of that. A high number of college degree individuals here, high number unemployed, and of course they would be moving towards getting more jobs rather than maybe keeping up the neighborhood or something like that. I'm just making that comment, and so I'm trying to say that we take this as just a small part of everything.
Thank you. All right,
That's right. A good thank you from all of us for all your hard work.
thank you. All right, it's a little past 3. Does anybody in the room need a break? 5-minute break instead of 10 minutes. We're going to keep this moving. We'll be back here at 7 after 3. Oh, that's right. She does our rules. Except when we're out at the Chili Springs. When we're out there, it's all day long.
We understand.
I'll go get it myself. Okay, here's 5 bucks.
Why would they hesitate? Is that what teachers do?
Yes. Here's my city card.
We're live. We're live.
One part of the whole.
I was trying to explain to you. I didn't have
That was the little committee. Oh, okay. All right, fine. There were 5. That's it. Over to you.
Test, check. This is working, right? Check, 1, 2. Okay, but test.
Advertising campaigns, lawsuits, it's great.
Test.
Mike's alive. Mike's alive.
size that is, if they're
2 minutes. You know, I haven't ordered to see this stuff. I'm not going to go. I'm watching the TV. Sorry. No, he called me. No, I don't have tickets. Dean called me and said, I want to be his guest. I said, I'm going to pay. I did, but I did not. The way it works down there, you have to buy the tickets before you know whether they're going to be in the playoffs. Before the playoffs, and if they don't get in, they apply for money next to the tickets. And I asked around. I said, does anyone want me to get the tickets? And everybody's saying no. So I saved the money. Need everybody. He does. All right, we're starting. Yes, would everyone please take their seats, folks? Everyone, please take their seats.
Okay, I want you to notice.
I'll have an answer.
I do. I really do. I really do.
That works.
I'm scared of Will. He does not know when to stop this. It's brutal. You're brutal. I'm just saying he's brutal. I want to get out of here. All right. Ms. Fretwell, let's talk about vision.
Absolutely. Just to give you a little bit of history on our vision statement and why it's an important element of the strategic planning process. Basically, your vision statement drives your priorities, your key performance indicators, and then those result in what the departments highlight in their strategic business plans. The strategic business plans are a blend, oftentimes, of some of the operational things that they're mandated to work on, their mission-critical services, as well as their response to the priorities that the mayor and council set for us. So you can see through this display that really they work together. You've got an operational line, which is mission-driven, and you've got a strategic line, which is vision-driven. So I think it's important. We've provided all of you the current strategic business plans for every department that we have. You may remember in one of my earlier slides, we indicated that we started the Performance Plus initiative about 2 years ago, 3 years ago now. And the result of that effort is that every one of your departments has a strategic business plan that has performance measures for every level of business that they provide. Their lines of business for each of their program areas, so that as we invest in those programs, you can see what the outcomes are. In your booklets, you have a section in there that shows the director's feeling of the impact of the cuts to date in our budget. You also have some of their most recent performance measures associated with the things that are both mission critical and priority driven kinds of performance. It's just to be able to help you have more information about how the changes in our budget have impacted performance to date, but also to show you how much work is going on to try and attain your current 8 priorities, and we're going to talk about those in a second. But this plan, the way this process works, allows us to be much more transparent and accountable to the public. The measures are focused on outcomes for the most part. We have what we call a family of measures where you talk about outcomes, efficiencies, inputs, and outputs. We focus primarily on the efficiencies and the effectiveness, although inputs and outputs are important to getting to those numbers. So not to belabor how we do our strategic business plans at this point, I'd be happy to answer any questions about that, but it's critically important that we know from you what is important as we go forward in doing the jobs that are laid before us as we modify those strategic business plans and as we implement those strategic business plans so that we are as aligned as possible with the council's priorities and with the mission of our organization. So that's why this is a critical discussion for us. So your current vision statement is this: a vibrant, affordable, diverse, unique, and world-class city of opportunity in which all citizens enjoy their neighborhoods, feel safe, and know they will be heard. My suggestion is that we take a few minutes to just pop some of the key words out of this statement for you to evaluate. Make sure they're still relevant. Make sure you still like this vision statement. Make sure we haven't missed anything. Because the key words in this vision statement should drive your key priority areas.
Is this a wish list that we're going to be discussing, or does it have to be tempered with pragmatism?
Well, your vision statement typically is a statement of the future state of the city as a community. What you want it to look and feel like in 20 years.
Okay.
That's typically what a vision statement is. Your key priorities, however, usually have a lifespan of around 5 years. You want to focus on those areas and then modify them because things will change within 5 years. Your vision statement may not change for 20 years. It could be modified slightly. But those are kind of the two frames of reference, if you will, as you look at vision statements and your priority focus areas going forward. So this is usually an ideal state kind of statement.
All right, well, I'll start off, if I may.
You want to go through it one at a time, or you want to give...
Well, we could do it. I'd like to go to the most important part as far as I'm concerned. And,
Okay.
I think we should emphasize that which is most important to us. With your explanation, and I appreciate that explanation because I think it's a good way to do business as a city. I want us to be the world-class city. So I would do, that's my hill to die for, to keep that phraseology in there.
Well, maybe we can just pop through it because we're going to pop that word up along with some of the other phrases in the statement just to check for relevance and to make sure we're still on the same track, that this vision statement is what you want it to be as a council.
Mr. Mayor, excuse me, but I didn't understand that. You already have world-class city. Did you want to add something else?
No, but I want to make sure that we keep that.
Oh, okay.
But I'll accede to Ms. Fretwell's suggestion that we go by word by word, at least the important words, and whether we want to keep it or we feel that it's irrelevant or not important at this time.
Well, and the other thing is that all of these words typically drive your key priorities.
Okay.
Your key priorities should have some relevance to these words, so it kind of plays both ways. I'm getting a look from Councilman Ross.
No, I'm good.
You're good? Okay.
Yeah.
It may be helpful just to pop through it real quick, and then we can look at the statement as a whole. So really, your first statement that pops out, your first word that pops out is vibrant as a descriptor of the kind of environment and community that you want to have. The question is that still a relevant descriptor that you want to keep in a vision statement?
Yes, Councilman Ross.
And the look on my face, thank you, Your Honor. The look on my face, Ms. Fretwell, is because do we want a dull world-class city? I guess that's why I'm looking at these as I'm going through the slides. I'm thinking, well, keep going. I don't want to slow you down.
Okay. Well, but those are the kinds of things, some of them may seem intuitive.
Well, a word that we use, many of the council members, instead of vibrant, I haven't heard that used during our council meetings, but does proactive, is that synonymous with vibrant?
It could be another word that you want to consider inserting instead of vibrant.
Mr. Mayor, I think vibrant hits you harder and stronger than proactive.
Okay?
Personally, Mayor Goodman, if you don't mind, I think
No, I
they
don't
mean
mind.
different things. I think vibrant is a look, a feel, a taste, whereas proactive is an approach. I think they're different. But I agree with Mayor Goodman because some of the things we're doing, like having our meeting today, is being proactive in our approach to tackling the problems we have and the town halls.
All right. want to pop to the next one? And
All
I
right.
don't know, Mayor Pro Tem looks like he has something to say.
Now, does it help you with this kind of commentary?
Absolutely.
This
Because
is-
at the end, what we'll do is we'll look at the whole statement and see if, based on the dialogue and the questions, if you want to change things.
Right, but the fact that we're commenting as we are, that will go into the equation as far as how it's going to come out at the end?
Absolutely.
Mayor Goodman, please. I remember in some of our last strategic planning sessions, we had a moderator. I guess that's you today?
That's
and
me today.
At our last meetings, the moderator would have a big board, and they'd write down the key words we all said.
Correct.
I'm hoping you're doing some of those things.
I'm jotting away. And we do have a flip chart. If you guys feel more comfortable, I can set that up and we can scribe it out if you'd like. If it gets complicated, we'll do that. If it stays pretty streamlined, we may
We're not complicated yet.
Not yet.
Not complicated
Maybe
yet.
later.
Your Honor, I still like the word vibrant. I think it means exactly what what we've done and what we're continuing trying to do.
Very good. Just one comment, Mayor. I mean, if we were Toledo, I don't think the vibrant would be in the mission statement, but this is Las Vegas, so it's an exciting place, and we do keep it that way. I'm sorry to pick on Toledo.
Okay. The next word is affordable. Obviously, when this vision statement was crafted, affordable may have had a different connotation at the time. We were having escalating housing costs. There were issues associated with that were very important to the council. We've had several efforts, both on the federal legislative front as well as through CDBG activities and a variety of other things that we've focused intently on trying to create affordable housing and an affordable community in which people could reside and own a home.
And I'll be honest with you, Ms. Fretwell, I prefer it when we were unaffordable. We didn't have problems when we were unaffordable.
Mayor,
Yeah. Councilman.
the way I see it is when this council established this vision statement and placed affordable, unfortunately, or possibly fortunately, through someone's vision, the market has become affordable. So we have accomplished that word by default due to what's happening in the economy. There's, for a great many of individuals who were below the median income could not even dream of owning a home, and now having an opportunity to take advantage of, a down market, and now they are homeowners. So, you can look at it one or two ways, but I believe the affordable, when you all established it, what was it, 2006, Betsy?
That one probably was all the way
2005?
back to 2001, I bet you.
Oh, this is 2001?
This statement's about 10 years old.
Okay, well, we've accomplished that in a decade, so I'm not sure what your thinking was, but overall, I mean, you do have a lot of individuals who did not have an opportunity to purchase a home in 2001 that, since the economy has taken a dump, have really taken advantage of the market. So I say you've accomplished that.
Okay.
Either that or the banks have taken over the market.
Your Honor, if I could?
Yes.
I just got another one of my dumb questions. Why are we even trying to change this? I think it's great. I thought it was great back in 2001. I still think it's great. It's what we are.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to add to what he's saying. Absolutely. When I went through this, I said, by golly, they came up with a really good vision statement.
Why are we trying to change it?
Well,
You may not.
Well, why are we trying to change it, though?
I'm just saying you may not. You may leave it exactly the way you have it right now. But it's important to make sure that this is still the statement you want
yeah,
in order for us to be able to align your priorities to the statement.
right.
And if you don't want to have this conversation, that's fine. We do have new council members since 2001 who,
That's fine. I'll just shut up.
weren't privy to the conversation about why these words were important then.
Well, and if I may, I mean, that's the whole meaning behind this special city council meeting, is to talk about those priorities that we set forth 5-10 years ago. Where are we today? And I think as our city manager, you're asking us as a city council, is this the same vision statement that you want to move forward with?
It's just a reaffirmation or a modification or direct us to go back to the chalkboard and start over.
Yeah.
Really, it's
Because I'm going to be with my colleague, Mayor Pro Tem, on this. As I'm looking at this, and I recall when we did this, these were the words. These were the key words we wanted for the city of Las Vegas. We wanted to stand out amongst the rest of the cities in this country. And it still doesn't.
It seems to me, Mayor Goodman, with your permission, that we may have a general consensus not to change anything, in other words, not to subtract anything, but I would invite a discussion on whether we should add anything. Because, are you sure this came from 2001, Betsy?
Yeah.
It's been modified.
It's been
we
modified.
added world class about 3 years ago, I think, 3 or 4 years ago.
Well, if there is a concession generally, and I don't mean to step in your shoes, Mayor, that we don't necessarily want to remove anything, maybe we should have a discussion about adding things or not.
It really depends, absolutely. If you would like to have that discussion, we can. If you feel that this is a representation that's still a relevant vision statement for us as a community and you don't want to change it, we can move right to priorities. I'm totally fine with that.
Okay, well, I think that there has been a significant issue that comes to the fore when we weren't discussing this that is of great import, and that is the diversification of the economy. I think that we really have to put something in there that talks about a diversified economy, and that's part of my vision, at least, that we're not going to be a one-horse town dependent just on gaming, but that we're going to have different kinds of...
What is the word diverse in there for now, though? You already have it there. To what are you referring when you use the word diverse?
At least based on my recollection, diverse represented not only the fabric, the composition of our community, but that we had diverse economic opportunities for the community.
I think you have.
And that's why we've had a priority regarding diversifying the economy for quite some time.
And my recollection, with all due respect, was more on a ethnicity ground. When I thought of the phrase diverse, that's one of the main thrusts of, at least when Dr. Selby was here, to have a diverse city hall with diverse people from different kinds of backgrounds, from different kinds of creeds, beliefs, lifestyles, and the like. Maybe I'm wrong, but when I've read that since, that's the way I read that, rather than to diversify the economy.
I think there may have been two pieces of that puzzle. You're absolutely right, Mayor. There was the effort to diversify our workforce and to take advantage of the diversification within our community from a composition standpoint. You're absolutely right. Simultaneously, we've been implementing it as economic diversification in addition to ethnicity and backgrounds and the more humanistic view of diversity versus the business development view of diversity.
You know, if I could?
But we can be much more specific if you'd like and say economic diversity.
My colleague said, just add, please bring cash.
Do we need to separate you two?
Councilwoman?
Since you already have the word diverse in there, and you want to show a diversity in economy, could you use something like varied economy or some other words like that? We could look that up and check a better word out. But you already have the word diverse. You might want to find an appropriate synonym and use it in front of economies.
How about like an expanded economy?
Expand
Well, or
it.
something
It
to-
should be more than that.
There could be something to expand the theme.
Yes.
For example, where you say citizens enjoying their neighborhoods, you have 4, 5, or 6 words to explain a theme. The theme is diversity. Well, explain diversity in a few words or a phrase like you did in the second or third sentence. I think that's what we're looking at.
Well, I was thinking of something like varied economy, showing that you need different parts of businesses, different businesses to put in it. But I think what we need to do is look into that one.
Okay, we'll put it on the list. One thing you may want to consider, Brad had a good idea that might define that word diverse a little bit better in the statement would be to add economically and ethnically in front of diverse.
That does it.
Yes,
That
that would
does
be
it.
better. That would be good.
That does it.
Okay.
Betsy?
Yep, that's it.
Mark?
Mayor, if I may, Mark Vincent, when we go through and start talking about our priorities, and just to recall that if you look back at our existing priorities, we don't have an existing priority that talks about the diversification of city employment per se, but we do have aggressively attract and retain diverse businesses as one of our priorities. So by your actions in terms of how you set your priorities, it seems to me, based on what we did, that the old emphasis or the current emphasis was on diversification of businesses more than the diversification of employment, because I don't know that I find anything in our old priorities that talk to that. So that's just something to think of as we transition from what this vision statement means to you to where we're establishing our priorities.
Thank you.
And you may end up landing on just economically diverse as a result of where your priorities are.
Where do we go from here after we have this discussion today? When do we come back and address this at another time? How is that going to work?
Well, if it's a simple modification, we could do it today. You could adopt a new vision statement. You could drop in the word economically diverse or economically and ethnically diverse into this statement, and we're done. If there's not unanimity on that, then probably what we would do is go back, like Councilman Tarkanian suggested, run the thesaurus, see if we can come up with a better word, and bring it back to you at another council meeting. But ideally, if we know we're generally on the right track, then that will help us as we refine your priorities this afternoon for the balance of the afternoon.
Very good. Let's go on to priorities.
May I just make one other comment, Mayor Goodman, please, along this line? And that is that, it's basically stemming from what you said. I think for the last year and a half or 2 years, we've taken a lot of pride in ourselves on being the leading government entity in tackling our economic issues. We consider ourselves the leaders, the first people to do something. I'd like to see that somehow in our vision statement. Whether you call it, Mayor Goodman, you called it proactive or cutting edge or leadership or leading the way. I mean, I take a lot of pride in what we've done, and I think my colleagues do as well.
I agree. Mayor Goodman, I would like to see, this came out a little bit earlier as far as economically and ethnically diverse, being that we are looking to diversify the economy in which we live, because maybe 20 years ago, gaming was the one-horse show in town, and we know today that we can't continue at that pace. But at the same time, if you look at the numbers of the ethnic groups that are moving not only into our cities, but all major metropolitan communities around the nation, it's starting to become more and more infused with various cultures from not only from various other communities, but various other countries as well. So I believe we need to keep up with that pace and also reflect that not only in our vision statement, but we have to reflect that in our workplace as well.
What would you like, a word like melting pot or a phrase like that?
I believe economically and ethnically diverse.
Okay, fair enough.
I think, Councilman Wolfson, just to draw your attention to the mission board over there, remember I suggested that there's two components that really drive what we do. There's a mission statement and there's a vision statement.
Do you have a
I have it on the overhead
telescope?
too, but it's at the very end of the presentation.
We can't see it. We all
Okay.
need glasses.
Can you go to the very last slide of my presentation through the computer so I don't have to scroll through
No, it's up
20
here.
slides?
That's on the board.
All the way down. It's like the next to last slide, the next, that one. Thank you. All right. Oops. There we go.
Okay.
Can you see it from this position?
Yes.
Yes.
So you can see here that we have a reference to planning and visionary leadership, which is where we caught that kind of visionary concept, proactive, et cetera, as we're designing and implementing our municipal services.
I guess it doesn't
We can put it either
matter
place.
whether it's in our vision statement or our mission statement.
You want it there?
Personally, I'd like to, our vision statement is more of it is what it says. It's an approach, it's an idea, it's a viewpoint, it's our look to the future. I'd like to see something in our vision statement along what I
Like
said.
maybe
but
cutting edge or something along
Well,
those
we'll
lines.
go to that thesaurus, and if we can't decide today, maybe we can come up with something in the future.
Okay.
And
Mayor,
Mr.
if I
Mayor,
can make a
could I
suggestion?
ask Betsy,
Yes.
what is your definition of world-class?
Well, that's a difficult one. I think in the way we've been interpreting it is that we're setting the standard for cities around the globe. That we're already known and recognized as one of the global cities. And I think the idea is that we would continue to be among the top, if not the top. I have to be careful here because I know the mayor aspires to be the world-class city. We would be the ones setting the standard for everyone else in the globe, every city in the globe, for the things that you've outlined in your vision statement.
I think that was a wonderful answer. I want you to know I asked it because I had requested the use of world-class in our academic standards in the public schools when I was a trustee, and it took 6 months because they couldn't figure out how we could determine world-class. And I just want to show you that's what a bunch of educators can do sometimes. But that was a good definition. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Anthony.
Yeah, just as a suggestion, the only section of the vision statement that actually is directed towards City Hall is "No, they will be heard." And since I've been on the City Council, and I know the city works real hard in being open and transparent and making sure the public knows what we're doing, and maybe that needs to be part of our vision statement, that we are open and transparent. Just a suggestion.
Okay. All right.
That's a good thought.
So what I've heard so far is that we may want to integrate economically and ethnically diverse, that we weave in something regarding visionary, proactive, or cutting edge, and that we want to add in some language or clarify the language about the "no, they will be heard" to refer to what we have been using in our language as open and transparent. Are there any other things we need to add or amend?
Well, one of the things that I think that we're going to be discussing in the future when we evaluate the way our various departments function, particularly as it pertains to the economy and dealing with the business community, is that we're changing our approach. We're going to become more enabling to the private sector so that they will develop within the city and be successful and not feel that they're dealing with an impediment when they come to use our services. I don't know whether you want to put that into a vision statement or whether that's part of the mission, but I think that that's going to be an emphasis of this council in the immediate future, to assure that when this economy does rebound, that the business community will look to Las Vegas in which to do their business rather than Henderson or the county, because they put up the impediments and we will no longer have them. So I don't know where that goes, Ms. Fretwell, but I think that at least there should be a footnote to that effect.
Why don't we just add that as the fourth concept that we need to make sure we've covered? And I think if we can move into the priorities, all of these are taken together as one huge accumulation of your vision, your mission, and your priorities. All of those components then direct the work, both operationally and strategically, for the city. So maybe if we go through the priorities, we may be able to draft a modified vision statement that we could bring back at the end, and if it meets with your satisfaction, maybe something you choose to act on, or we bring it back at a subsequent council meeting for final action. So we'll just see how the rest of the day goes, if that's an okay approach for you.
Yes.
How are we doing on time, Mayor?
We're a little slow.
All right.
And Mayor Pro Tem and myself are getting ready to take off.
All right. We'll move ahead.
We'll let Councilor Wilson talk to himself for a couple hours.
What I'd like to do really quickly is go over your current and your proposed priority statements. We had some pretty lengthy, wordy priority statements. Not that that's a bad thing, but they are fairly lengthy statements. They're very goal-like, if you will. Those are on the left-hand side. We have been focusing significantly on all of those 8 priorities, although we have found that some of them were more difficult for us to judge our progress in than others. So as we took up the task to try and prepare for a follow-up discussion with you about what you felt your key priorities are going forward, we thought it might be helpful to try and narrow the number from 8 to something less, because 8 is very hard to manage. Normally, you have somewhere between 3 and 5 goals that you identify, or key priority areas that you identify. And then that way you can focus your resources in an effective manner to get there. Do you have a new vision statement?
Excuse me, we're
Do we have a new vision statement over there?
No,
Okay.
there is one, but
Okay, good.
it's the worst.
Oh,
No, it's not. It's not the worst. Pretty good, actually.
So as you can see, what we're suggesting here is that you collapse 3 of your current 8 priorities into one, and that you simplify the language so that it's a little bit easier for us to manage to. The way we're setting this up...
Yes, Councilman.
I'm sorry, Councilman.
Did you say take all that we have now, which is 8, you said,
Correct.
and put it into one?
Actually, we were suggesting 5.
Oh, 5, okay. I
Just this
I'm
slide
having
shows
difficulty
3
here.
collapsing into 1.
3 collapsing into 1.
Right.
I got that. Okay.
Because they all seem to be interrelated to us as staff. You may not agree, so that you just tell us if that's not what you want to have happen. So basically what we are suggesting to you is that you take integrate, manage orderly, sustainable development and growth, encourage sustainability, livability, and pride in our neighborhoods, and promoting healthy lifestyles, and put that into sustainable and livable neighborhoods. Now, reflecting on what we heard from the focus panel's report earlier in the presentation, very clearly the data from that effort seems to support continuation of a priority related to livable neighborhoods and sustainability of the city. So that's just something for you to consider as we move through this.
And Betsy,
yes, ma'am.
One thing, if perhaps somehow we can integrate on that, since we're talking about the growth and development of the community, the neighborhoods, the involvement of residents, maybe, and I don't know, I'm just throwing this out there now, but as we develop this somehow, continue an emphasis on drawing neighbors, residents into using our resources.
That's actually one of the last slides we have here to have a little discussion about whether you want that in or out, because you've already got a priority related to open government. It's more about access instead of engagement. And so we wanted to have a discussion about that with you today, too.
Okay, I'm just throwing that out because I feel it's very important that we engage the public in helping us maintain these sustainable, livable neighborhoods. And that's, I think, a key role we play in the city.
Great. So maybe if I just run through these real quick once, and then we can pop back to them and take them one at a time, because there's a lot here, and you probably want to see the whole canvas before we're done. The second one, you had revitalize and invigorate our mature areas and the urban core. This language is a little bit cumbersome, and it's hard. It was hard for us to really define what we meant by mature areas, and it was fairly easy for us to define urban core. We stole some language from Austin, I believe, Maggie, to try and capture that in 3 words or less, what we thought you meant by that, which we're suggesting vibrant urban fabric. The next one would be to streamline your cost and revenue resources to achieve efficient operations into fiscally sound government. The mayor alluded to this in his comments earlier about making things a little bit easier for businesses to do business in the city of Las Vegas and reside here and develop here. We had former language, aggressively attract and retain diverse businesses. We see that reference to diversity there, Mayor. To pro-business environment. Pretty straightforward. We had a long statement regarding safe environment for residents, businesses, and visitors using a community-oriented approach. We're suggesting just take it to the basics of that. We want a safe city. And then, Councilwoman, this is the one that is kind of related to your comment from a couple of minutes ago. Providing open government which allows access, participation, and respectful communication. And one of the things that I would suggest to you is that maybe 10 years ago, we were working on major enhancements in some of the services we provide. We had Joe Marcella working diligently to get people online, not in line. We started KCLV, and we're trying to create more accessibility and information out to the public. We also worked on a variety of creation of boards and commissions. The presentation from YNAP, for instance, the other day, where we're getting more youth engaged in how we do business and project orientation in the community. And some of that has kind of become old hat. And so the question is, if it's just a part of your expectation of how we do business, then it really may be more of a value than a priority. But if it's about what Councilman was indicating earlier about kind of a strategic engagement of our citizenry, that we go above and beyond the norm to get our citizens involved, then it probably still is a priority. And if that's the case, how do we want to redefine that language? Do we want to call it citizen engagement? Do we want to call it something like deliberative democracy, where you're really you're expanding on that two-way respectful communication, but you're really trying to get the public to engage with your government? So I'll flip back now that you've seen all 5 recommended ones and the one that's on the bubble, which is the open government one, and we can kind of open it up for conversation to see if you like the new language. It's probably important before you start talking about it to know that the real defining components of this are the key performance indicators. Those are the next phase of this. So, Mayor, it's kind of up to you if you want me to run through those very quickly.
I would like that.
Okay, because those kind of begin to define the key areas of focus as we move forward. And the directors were very engaged in developing the key performance indicators, and they're taken directly from their strategic business plans. So they're already working towards many of these. We also will be working to establish targets if they're ones that you feel are where we need to be focused. I liken key performance indicators to our corporate report card. That each year we should be able to bring a report to council that says, here's how we did on these key indicators. We may bring you quarterly reports, we may bring you 6-month reports, but we should be able to report at least annually on how we're doing. So if you bear with me for a second, you assume for a second you agree with the concept of having a priority on sustainable and livable neighborhoods. From your staff perspective, the 4 key measures that would indicate that we're guilty of creating a sustainable and livable neighborhood would be that we recognize that we're creating a balanced approach of suburban development and infill development within our community. That we have keep a focus on the percent of neighborhoods that shifted from a target area to a stable area. In other words, we're strategically investing our resources in those areas that are challenged, but that we can move to a much more stable position. You've seen the maps on this. This is one of your prior key performance indicators. As a part of your plan for sustainability, probably the highest level measure is how much have we reduced our greenhouse gas emissions from our baseline that we established in 2005. And as we've discussed as a part of the leisure pricing plan, what programs are we offering that are in the merit category? And just to remind you what the merit category is, those are the services that we provide, the programs that we offer that have both public and private benefit. So they're not the golf lessons that only benefit the individual golfer. They're more like having league play and recreational opportunities and classes where the kid not only benefits or the adult not only benefits personally, but the public does too, because maybe it puts them in a better position as a community citizen Maybe they're not being a juvenile delinquent, whatever they might be doing alternatively to being participants in that program. In the vibrant urban fabric, we have 3 key areas. Many of these are the same as your indicators right now. We report regularly on our level of private investment in the redevelopment area against the public investment. And we've been doing very well there. We feel like that's still a key measure we should retain. We also feel that the change in the population in the neighborhood revitalization area, which is kind of the next circle outside of the redevelopment area, it's most of the downtown neighborhoods, trying to repopulate that area and really focus in on reurbanization of the downtown area is a critical component of our economic development efforts. And then obviously the change of employment. Bill Arndt reported out at one of his presentations last month about the employment levels in the redevelopment area within the city, and what we want to do is continue to bolster employment in our downtown area, not just the RDA, but the neighborhoods adjacent to the RDA. Fiscally sound government. Many of these you've seen before. One, we want to keep a very close eye on our cost recovery for services that we provide. We're not going to fully cost recover. I mean, we are government after all. But there may be areas where you have certain cost recovery standards you want us to hit before we get into that business, or to make a determination about whether we stay in that business. We'd also suggest that we continue to monitor the change in wage and benefit growth of the average full-time employee. Obviously, that has an impact on our sustainability. We want to preserve our bond ratings, and we want to keep an eye on our unfunded liabilities going forward. Those all speak to your long-term fiscal strength as an organization. Pro-business environment. We want to keep an eye on the change in employment levels within the city, the wage levels that our residents are enjoying. We want to keep an eye on how we're changing the use in vacant land so that we can keep an eye on keeping a good land use balance within the city, creating opportunities for business growth versus residential growth, for instance. That we want to make sure that we're keeping an eye on the change in the percentage share of the categories of employment other than gaming and construction. This is key to the diversification discussion you had earlier. And then obviously we've spent quite a bit of time and effort on preparing for really revamping our development review process, and we'd like to integrate that into the key performance indicators, because it will take us a couple of years to really get that underway and making huge progress. Councilman Ross gave me the look. It won't take us 2 years to implement, but it will take us 2 years to see major results.
Benefits.
Yes.
Because that's key to us as a city being as pro-business and easy to deal with, more so than any other jurisdiction in Southern Nevada. So you know that, and that's why I gave you that look. But yeah. Thank you for that.
Safe City, what we have here are 5 key measures. The fire department reports on these, as do municipal court, and with help from Public Works. So I'll just very quickly run through those. How many confirmed structure fires are confined to the room of origin? This has a relationship to response times, but also to property and life loss impacts. We have a % change in the violent crimes and domestic crime statistics. We want to keep a really close eye on domestic violence. That's been an ongoing priority of municipal court. Obviously, we want to respond quickly to life-threatening medical incidents, and our goal there is to be on scene within about 5 minutes. And that's a big goal, but we want to make sure that our community is prepared for that.
And if I may, Your Honor, and Betsy, I see that 5 minutes, 12 seconds. How do we monitor mutual aid or our other partners in the industry? How do we monitor their response times, AMR, for example, to any of the calls? Do we have any statistical information in regards to those folks? Chief, I don't mean to put you on the spot.
We do. We get a monthly report from AMR on every call that we go on, what their response times were to that same call.
Well, and oftentimes, I don't mean to interrupt, but oftentimes we do mutual aid where we need to go into North Las Vegas or the county, and the other municipalities do the same thing. What about those response times?
We keep statistics on those times also. At any given time, I can have a report prepared that shows how many times we responded into another entity or they responded into our entity. We can bring up any call to show what our response time was compared to the private ambulance's response time was to the same call.
Okay.
That will show up even on every report that we do at the end of that call, what the response times were.
That's good to know because that leads me into my next question, if I may, Your Honor. Betsy, and this is probably not to put either one of you on the spot, but the 5 minutes, 12 seconds, as I look back in the background here, these are strategic plans. Is this a target, or do we actually have current response times available to us? Because I don't see that anywhere in this. And was that part of the Performance Plus review, or?
We actually do have that data. Let me just go to that really quickly. This is for C, D, or E level calls. Do you have it, Greg, or do you want me to go over it?
I don't have those.
Okay.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
From the Performance Plus data, what we have is that we hit that target 77.6% of the time in fiscal year 09, and in the first quarter of fiscal year 10, we hit it 80% of the time.
That's significant, I think.
When we break that down into different zones in the city, though, we'll have areas such as downtown or in East Las Vegas where if we were to look at those numbers for the course of the year, we would exceed our response times. We would get there much quicker. When we look at areas out in the far northwest where the stations are spread out, it takes longer. So when we look at a combined time, it might show an average of getting there 6 minutes total for the city. But in certain areas of town, we're getting there within 3 to 4 minutes. Other areas, it's taken us 7 to 9 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Chief. Thanks, Betsy.
Mayor, if I have a question.
Yes, Councilman Eppin.
The second item, percentage change in violent crime and domestic crime statistics, seems to me that domestic crime is a violent crime, and that should be violent crimes and property crimes, since that's what's reported in the UCR. So we should be reporting on property crimes also. So that's my opinion.
I think the focus that we were looking at was mainly from Unicorp's perspective. Jim may want to talk about that because the violent crimes, obviously Metro responds to those. Those are still important to a safe city. And as you reviewed some of the data we shared with you earlier, individuals in the focus groups indicated they feel safe. They feel safe in their neighborhoods, which is a really good indicator. And our violent crime is down about 7.5%. So obviously we want to keep a focus on that. But we were also trying to measure the domestic violence statistics because that's such a critical focus for the municipal court. We could add property crimes in addition to that if that works for you.
I think you should.
Okay. We'll add that to the list. All right. And then just the last two, we've been spending quite a bit of effort on making sure that we are having quality outcomes with our medical care. If we're in the business of emergency medical response, we want it to be quality care and care that gives people who have a chance to survive. So it's important for us to measure that. This is a measure that's recognized nationally as something that gives you a good indicator of how successful you are in that. And I'd kind of like for the Chief to real quickly highlight a recent change in technology that I think is going to make a big difference in this fourth bullet.
This year we started a pilot program. Well, there was 3 fire departments that were involved, where it's called the cold IV. I can't tell you the exact name, but when we have a cardiac arrest patient, we have our IV kits are already chilled. They're pre-chilled. So when we start an IV on them, they're getting cold fluids, and we pack them in ice. We're the first department of the 3 pilot departments across the country that have put this in all of our rescues. So every cardiac arrest patient in the city of Las Vegas gets this cold IV therapy. And in the first month, we've had 3 code saves, meaning that we got there with a cardiac arrest patient. We started the cold IV fluids, did CPR, and had pulses back when we got them to the hospital. This was far beyond what we even envisioned, and we're still in the first 3 weeks of this program.
I wish that we had heard about this 3 weeks ago, to be honest with you, as a council, because that's the kind of, and it's trite, cliche-ish, but that's the kind of cutting-edge stuff that really does make us a world-class city, which differentiates us from other places. And we have to know this because we're out and about in the public, and we have to tell the public why we are better than anybody else. I heard about this procedure. I had never heard about it being linked with fire and safety. It was just something that they're using in hospitals now. And actually, we're taking it to the field. That's a big deal.
Right. And, you know, it's so new. It just came out in the last few weeks on City Beat. We had them profile it. But we're very excited about the results that it's showing, and excited that we're a city that we're providing that throughout to every citizen in Las Vegas, whether you live here or not. If you have a cardiac arrest, you're going to get that treatment.
So these are the key things. What they say is what you measure is what gets managed, what gets done. And this has been on the chief's list, along with these other ones and everybody else's list over here, as ways to really make a big difference and in our outcomes. These are outcomes. These are lives saved. And, you know, we look at the first quarter results, which doesn't include this. We're at about 11% saves. Get to the hospital with a heartbeat or whatever. Hopefully that number will go up. I think the target's around 15. So hopefully we'll be able to attain that, maybe even get better results. And then the last one we've been spending quite a bit of resources on is really trying to address fatal traffic accidents. The judges have been focusing in on this from their judicial enforcement standings. They've been trying to come down hard on individuals. I hope I don't get in trouble with the judges for saying that, but you know, really taking these kinds of accidents that are life-threatening seriously through the court system. In addition to that, Public Works has been working significantly to update our areas, our intersections that are most dangerous and most congested with our road taxes. So it takes both departments to make a big impact here in this one measurement area. So just so you know, there's a lot of activity that goes to support these things. They're not just dots on an overhead projector today. There's a lot of work that's been going into these already. We did not develop one, Councilwoman, for the open priority, the open and accessible government priority, deliberative democracy, citizen engagement. If it's your desire that we have a priority related to that area, we can certainly work on that and bring it back to you. But, Mayor, that's the whole picture there, and I'd be happy to handle this any way you'd like at this point.
All right, well, I think we could go down the road and ask the various council members whether they have any suggestions or ideas or requests. I could start off just a little bit. When Councilman Anthony, he used the word transparency. It is a buzzword now. It's one of the words that, you know, it's part of our lexicon when it comes to government. And since people understand what that means and they appreciate the fact that open government, it's a government where people can see what's happening and where their money's going, I'd like to have that incorporated somewhere.
Transparency.
Transparency. And then you made one other comment, which I found to be very interesting. I hadn't thought this way in a long time. One of the things I loved about leaving the private sector, practicing law, and then coming over to the city as the mayor is that everything that the city did was for the public good. At least that was my mindset. And we were always trying to provide a quality of life without any chicanery, without any ulterior motives or hidden purposes that are part of the private sector. And that's the way the capitalistic system works, and there's nothing wrong with it. But with government, I felt it was good that everything was open and progressive. And I don't know whether or not we can continue thinking that way. I think that we may have to analyze whether or not we want to be more like the private sector than the public sector. It was wonderful when we had unlimited funds, in effect, to provide services without worrying about the recovery costs necessarily, without really concentrating on the economic situation. And everything that I hear from the private sector
at this point in time, makes a little bit of sense. And I think we have to start evaluating perhaps whether we want to be more like them than we have in the past. That may be something that the managers want to discuss, or the department heads. Recoveries of money, for instance, by fire and rescue. But whether or not there was some suggestion that perhaps we don't rely so much on AMR's collection practices, but perhaps we have our, I guess it was Councilman Ross earlier today spoke to me about having maybe an employee or hiring somebody ourselves, if it's allowed by the contract, I don't know whether it is, for us to go out and collect the money ourselves, to be a little more aggressive about that. I think we have to think more in terms of the private sector than we have in the past.
I think we may be there a little bit, Mayor, with this first bullet on the physically sound
Right.
government.
Right, but as I say, more in a private sector mode than just trying to collect money, have people pay for services and the like. I think we have to think, it's a different time than it was. I don't know whether we have the luxury to just be, a beneficial place for the public. I think we have to start worrying about ourselves as well while we provide these services to the public.
And Mayor Goodman, if you don't mind, it's also the second bullet, I think, which is consistent with what you're talking about, because you're talking about the wage and benefit growth. I'm going to equate that to our creation of a new employee, and that's consistent with the sustainability desire to make certain changes. We're not the way we were 5 years ago, where we can pay the best of wages and benefits. And in the private sector, and they're doing it, they take the situation and make difficult decisions, and that's where we're at too. And I think the creation of this new employee is along those same lines. It's acting like more of a business than just providing necessarily for the public good.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem.
I wrote down a couple of bullet points, but to me, the mayor kind of alluded to, we're here today, and I understand what we're trying to do. But again, though, the whole ballgame could change next week. I think Councilman Barlow mentioned yesterday also that we're still waiting to see if they have a special session at the legislature. So all the services we're providing, everything we're talking about here today, could change just like blink in your eye. And I think we need to be able to change with the moment. It's good to have all this stuff written down and say, well, we're going to be this way, we're going to be this way. But again, though, it may not be how we're going to be able to do business next Monday.
Councilman Ross?
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, we haven't taken any action on this priorities list, Betsy, in regards to your bringing them all, the 8 priorities down to 5. I don't know if it's appropriate but I don't see a problem with that, if that's okay with this council, of course, the mayor and this council. I think that's a good idea, Betsy. I think it really kind of streamlines things and makes things easier for you. I'm going to be on this high horse again, and you've heard me say this before, as this council has, but there's money out there that we haven't collected yet. Municipal courts, marshals, detention enforcement, warrants. I know fire and rescue is doing a bang-up job in trying to increase some revenues with transports, and I believe that we can be more effective. I think I'd like to see some numbers. I think all of us would like to see some numbers. And I know that I hope the court's working on that. Or
I asked for that yesterday.
Did you do that? Betsy, I know we asked about that. Is that in the works?
We're working on that whole revenue report for you. We are also working on specific responses on the various revenue suggestions that have come in from the bargaining units.
Good, because I think that's important.
Not totally done. I know Chief Coyne and Mr. Carmody were working for 5 hours yesterday on that warrant program, for instance. So, I mean, there is a lot of hard work that's going into try and do what we can to enhance our collections, as well as to try and collect things that have yet to be collected that are owed to us.
Yeah.
It's not lost on us, and it's an important component of the discussion as we go forward.
And at this time, Your Honor, I'd like to say thank you for that. Thank you for working on that, because I think we all want to see that. If there's something out there, we want to get it. Before we start affecting the lives of employees, because they're a part of the city. They're what make us what we are, and that's important to recognize and understand. But I think this is a good way to head in that direction, Betsy. I think 5 years ago when we did this, I think we were heading in the right direction. I think we're still headed in the right direction. Yes, the environment's changed. The economy's changed. We still need to stay focused on what's right for the general good of this city. All of us in the executive portion of this city and all of our employees down the line. And that's important. So those are my only comments, Your Honor.
Thank you, Councilman Anthony.
I'm okay with the proposed changes.
Thank you, Councilwoman Tarkanian.
I think we made some excellent suggestions today. I would like to review them in the complete context of what we've discussed and maybe get back to you on Monday if I have any additional thoughts than what I've already said.
But I thought you did want us to take consideration of adding the sixth priority back, Councilwoman. Did I interpret that right?
Yes, I did. I was counting that in what I was saying.
Okay, so we do need to, we're going to need to work on that a little bit, and we'll be happy to take any direction you have regarding that open, transparent,
yes,
engaging kind of priority.
Okay, Councilman Barlow.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. First and foremost, I would like to thank Betsy, you and the entire city staff that pulled all of this together. I think this was a lot of work that went into this, and it provided me with a lot of information and educated me in a lot of areas that I wasn't too up to speed with, and now having a clear understanding in some of those key areas that are very vitally important to the operations of the city. What has been said here today, specifically, as Councilman Wilson stated, the new employee, I believe that that's something that I stand behind and something that I support because of where we are today. And the economy has really made the city and other municipal governments look at how, in fact, they do business, somewhat along the lines of what the mayor has shared. And a lot of us in our very own homes, I know I myself have made some adjustments in my own home as it relates to what the economy has done, and really made me look at some things that I most definitely need, and some things that I really didn't need. And so that's where we are today as a city, as far as giving us a clear picture of the areas in which we really need to focus on and things that we cannot do without, but then taking advantage of those areas that 10, 15, 20 years ago was relevant, that just may not be relevant in today's economy and time as far as how we do business as a city. And so for that, I understand the mayor's position in regards to his comments surrounding the running the city like a business. I agree with that to some extent, because there are areas that we can run the city just like the private sector. Because this is a business, if you will, run it like a private sector. But we also have to be careful in the sense of we are a municipal government, and there's things that we can do as a municipal government that the private sector can't do, such as some of the bonding moves that we just currently made in order to really put the city in a position to do things that the private sector could not do. And so there is a balance there that we can most definitely take advantage of. And I believe it was Councilman Ross mentioned what was the key point? I just lost my thought as far as the key point that Councilman Ross made. I'll come back to it. But in closing, where we are today in regards to the vision and the mission, I'm glad that we were able to bring the vision and the mission off the shelf, dust it off, and giving those of us who were not a part of the council at the time when this was laid out an opportunity to key in and basically look and see if in fact those key wordings as far as the direction and what we would like the city to go in is relevant today. And a lot of us actually can utilize this same experience to go in our homes and clean out our storages from all that stuff that's in there from the last 20 years and see if some of those things are relevant and make room for the growth of our homes. And so the city is in a good position, and we're doing that. We're basically cleaning up that storage of information and unfortunately positions as well as programs and services that once was relevant that's no longer relevant today. So I'm just very appreciative to hear and see the city staff working so diligently to really key in on what we can use and what we really can do away with.
All right, Ms. Fretwell, do you want to talk about key performance indicators?
Well, we pretty much went over those, Mayor, as a part of the discussion about the priority areas.
Right.
Just two things, because I know you want to wrap up here in the next 15 minutes.
You have no idea how much.
First off, I want to say thank you very much for your feedback about the work that our team has done to create this. Every one of these directors has spent many hours working on not only implementing these performance measures, but each and every one of them probably have 50 or more in each of their departments that you have in the back of that book there. And so they're working very diligently to have the data that you need to be able to make informed decisions about how we're operating. That's first and foremost. I'd like to thank Mark Vincent, who helped put this together. Most of the planning, most of the work was done by Mark and his staff. As you know, we reported to you that we were creating the Office of Performance Management in the Finance Department, led by Maggie Plaster. She did, in conjunction with support staff from the various departments, all of the work that's in that book right there. All of those separate reports that are related to the cuts, impacts, the citizen survey results, what we're doing in those areas where they ask for enhancements. There was a lot of work that went into that I think helped make this conversation go fairly smoothly today. There are two questions that I just want to pose. One, with these 5 priorities, plus the open government priority that we need to do work on, did we miss anything?
With your permission, I was going to make an observation. I think it's going to answer your question, and that is, we're about to enter into a pretty unique activity. We're going to have 12 town halls in the next 60 days, and at each of these town halls, Mayor Goodman and our city manager and each of us are going to attend, and we're going to get really, really good impact and engagement, to use your word, Betsy, from our constituents. So perhaps before we finalize a mission statement and a priority list, we should just take what we've learned today and draft the new things that we've talked about, but recognize that our constituents are going to be providing us with a lot of information that may even be more valuable. We may need to tweak some of these things in the next 60 days. I don't think we should come to final things today, recognizing what we're going to be doing in the next 60 days.
Just food for thought. These, if we're not on the right track, will be used heavily in preparing your budget plan, in addition to the feedback from the town halls. So my suggestion procedurally would be that we bring a cleaned up version back to you as quickly as we can. And then as we go through the budget workshop, make modifications if we need to in March as a result of any additional feedback you get through the town hall sessions. But knowing that we're on the right track with this is going to be vitally important in moving forward with budget preparation. So maybe there's a blended approach, Councilman, that we can take versus just a wait and see. I think Mayor Pro Tem's comments earlier about we need to be adaptable is critically important. But at least knowing we're on the right track from you all to us officially would be very helpful. And then we can modify it accordingly as a result of the completion of the Your City, Your Way initiative.
And Betsy, if I might add, I really truly believe we are on the right track with the information that's been collected and is certainly substantive by your staff. And I know we all appreciate it very much. There's going to be some tweaking, there's going to be some concerns, but from the front of the book to where we are now, this white book, it certainly shows all the work you've done, and then we can work that out. I agree with Councilman Wolfson. There might be some changes or flexibilities or adaptations, as Councilman Reese stated, that we can do as we get more input from the citizens.
So there may be some things that we need to modify, but right now I'm not hearing that there's anything that you all feel that we clearly missed, we left out, omitted. The second question is, are there any things that you heard today in the focus group results or that you reflected on as a result of the community survey that we needed to highlight more in these key performance areas or in any of these priorities that we didn't bring forward?
Well, I would like to say, I had that question about the validity of some of that work that was done, but these are things we're just going to have to consider as we go along, and that's one of the problems you have as you do these types of things.
What we will do is, as we finish up the Your City, Your Way initiative, if there are things that kind of rise as themes, because one of the things that we will be doing is completing a final report that encapsulates that entire process. There may be themes that come out of that, and this is kind of more to Councilman Wolfson's point, I think, that may make you modify some of these or add a performance measure or want to ensure that there's a performance measure in a departmental business plan as a result of the feedback we've received from the community. I just wanted to make sure that at this point we hadn't missed something that you heard loud and clear from the citizens that maybe we missed.
Well, the one thing, I'm not sure whether we include this in anything that we've said, but the common theme through the survey and the focus groups was the people who live here want to feel like they're part of something, which is a community. And I'm not sure that we've expressed that anywhere to give that sense of community. And I'm going to be talking about during the State of the City, because I think that's one of the reasons that we may want to have ourselves a Major League sports team here in order to have the identification like we used to have in Las Vegas when Tarkanian had the great Rebel teams and people went to the convention center and watched the ball games. They didn't know each other, but they identified with Las Vegas and they were proud of it. And I don't know whether we have that anymore, and I think that that's one of the underlying feelings that I got when I was reading the results of the survey. I don't know how you express that in any of these categories, but the bottom line is I think that's what our constituents really want. They want to be proud of living here, and they want to feel like they're part of what's happening here. Pride.
All right, so maybe next steps. Here's what we will do. We'll take your feedback today. We will mock up maybe a couple of different vision statements for your consideration. Probably go ahead and put that on one of your upcoming council agendas. I don't know that we'll be ready for the second meeting in January, but maybe. We'll brief you on those statements in our individual council briefings. We will also create the sixth priority with some suggested key performance indicators in that area for your consideration. We'll bring the new vision statement. If we need to modify the mission statement based on the vision statement changes, we'll do that. And then we'll bring the 6 priorities with the key performance indicators back to council for approval, with the caveat that at the end of the Your Citizen, Your Way initiative, we may need to make some modification based on the results. Is that an okay game plan for you? Yes. So it'll probably be February for us to do all that work. We'll bring it back on a regular council agenda for your final approval. And I thank you all very much for being patient with us. I know it's National Football Championship
Well, we
time,
thank
and everybody's
you.
focused on that, but
We thank you very much.
this is really important for us in going forward.
I thank everybody for their brevity and their succinctness. I think Brad proposed the mission statement.
The vision or mission?
The vision statement, pardon me. And there's a request that I read it, and you might take this into some consideration. A world-class, vibrant, affordable, economically and ethnically diverse, progressive city of opportunity where citizens feel safe, enjoy their neighborhoods, and have open access to their government. So I'll pass this up.
Okay.
Seems
Sure,
fair.
we can put that as
All four? Yeah, the first good thing Brad's done in a long time.
Mayor, I would like to recognize Christy Darnus, who always does such a fabulous job in setting up these facilities to make these meetings go. So, that concludes my report.
Well, I appreciate that. This is a unique opportunity for us on the council because rarely do we have all of the managers and folks who make the city run on a day-to-day basis in front of us. And I want to tell you that we do appreciate the work that you do for us and for the city. And I want to emphasize something because it's very important. This is a constructive criticism, perhaps. We rely on you. I can't tell you how much we rely on you. We rely on you for everything that we do. Number one, to accomplish our goals, our vision, to make the city a wonderful place in which to live, but also on the information that you provide us. And it's very important that that information upon which we rely totally is always accurate, because if it isn't accurate, we get in trouble. We're the ones who have to answer the public because we're the electeds. So I just ask you to always be very, very careful when you advise us that what you're advising us is right, and then we can make the decision based on that information, but we can never have the feeling that we're not getting the absolute correct information from you when you tell us something. And I think we have to say that every once in a while because we're totally reliant upon you folks for how we act, and we have to make sure that we're acting appropriately on behalf of our constituents. Just recently, with the unfortunate disaster that happened in the federal building in the U.S. courthouse, I got 3 different stories in one morning as to what the facts were. And I learned when I went to my FEMA training that the one thing the mayor has to do during the time of an emergency is to advise the public truthfully and accurately of the facts when he addresses or she addresses the public. And had I gone out and made statements based on the information I was receiving that day, I would look like an idiot, because after 3 different stories being told to me by 3 different officials, the next day there was a 4th story which appeared to have been the truth, and it wasn't even hinted at in the first 3 versions that I got. So it's very important that you tell us the facts and that you're right in what you tell us. We're not looking for yes men, as Councilman Wilson just said. We're looking for people who care about the city and want to do the right thing by us. And we appreciate everything that you do for us. We really do, because I think we have the best employees in the entire valley working for the city of Las Vegas. There will be no closing prayer. I promise you that. No, forget about it. I'm going to bring Joshua Collins by and have him give us a prayer. All right, this is time for citizens' participation. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters within the jurisdiction of the City Council. No subject may be acted upon by the City Council unless that subject is on the agenda and is scheduled for action. If you wish to be heard, come up to the mic, identify yourself. Do we have a timer? Okay, 3 minutes.
Thank you. Juanita Clark on behalf of Charleston Neighborhood Preservation. And we had worked a little bit on this vision statement, not worked on it. We just added a few little things. And so today we can finally, mention it. And so it would be in the last portion of it. We would change, instead of in which, we would just put where in there. And then instead of residents, we would say constituents. And then we would add feel safe and know they are heard. And we appreciate the fact that we could hear today. We have been to these group meetings in other places, in other buildings, and this was just awesome. It was just beautiful. We could hear everything, and I think it was great to get it all together. Thank you.
Good, and if you'd be kind enough to give your suggestions to the clerk, I think those should be made part of the record and evaluated by your staff. All right? Anybody else like to be heard at this time? All right, by a show of hands, how many are rooting for Texas? How many for Alabama? Okay, meeting's adjourned.